The text message from my father landed like a bomb. Had to sell your Honda to cover Spencer's emergency. We'll make it up to you. Just like that, my car, the one I'd spent 3 years saving for while working 2 jobs, was gone. My hands trembled as I gripped my phone, fighting back tears in the middle of my office break room. My name is Andrea, and at 27, I thought I was past being surprised by my family's capacity to disappoint me. I was wrong. He did what? Ainsley's voice crackled through my phone as I paced the parking lot where my car should have been. That's not even legal. Did he forge your signature? The title was still in his name, I said, my voice hollow. He never transferred it after I paid him back. Said it was easier for insurance purposes. Call the police. And report what? That my daddy sold his own car? I kicked a loose piece of gravel, watching it skitter across the asphalt. Besides, you know how this goes. Spencer gets in trouble, Dad bails him out, and I'm expected to understand, because family helps family. My phone buzzed again. Spencer this time. Thanks, sis, really saved my ass. I'll pay you back ASAP. I barked out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. Sure you will, I muttered, thinking of the 3 other loans he'd never repaid. Want me to pick you up? Ainsley asked. We can go get drunk and plot your revenge. I need to handle this sober, I said, already walking toward the bus stop. I'm going to Dad's office. 20 minutes later, I stood in front of Barrett Morgan Financial Services, straightening my blazer. The receptionist's eyes widened when she saw me. Andrea, your father's with a client. I pushed past her, my heels clicking against the marble floor as I marched toward his office. Through the glass walls, I could see him laughing with some suit-clad investor. The door swung open under my hand. We need to talk. Dad's smile faltered. Andrea, I'm in a meeting. About my car. The words came out sharp enough to cut. The one you sold without my permission. The client cleared his throat awkwardly. Barrett, we can finish this later. After he left, Dad leaned back in his chair, adopting that patronizing expression I'd grown to hate. Honey, I know you're upset, but Spencer was in real trouble. Some very dangerous people. Stop! I held up my hand. I don't want to hear about Spencer's latest screw-up. I want to know how you're planning to make this right. Well, once Spencer pays me back. When has that ever happened? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. What about making things right with me? I paid for that car. And I'll help you get another one, once things settle down. He shuffled some papers on his desk, clearly considering the matter closed. Maybe something more practical this time. The dismissal in his tone made something snap inside me. Where is Spencer now? Probably at home with Isabella. They're trying to work things out after this incident. You mean after he gambled away their rent money? Again? The pieces clicked together in my head. That's what this was about, wasn't it? His gambling debts? Dad's silence was answer enough. You know what? I said, suddenly eerily calm. Keep the car. Keep bailing him out. But remember this moment, Dad. Remember exactly how it felt to look me in the eye while choosing him over me. Again. Andrea, because one day things are going to change. And when they do, I want you to remember that you taught me exactly how much family loyalty is worth. I turned and walked out, ignoring his calls behind me. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls. Flushed cheeks, bright eyes, straight spine. I hardly recognized myself. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Honey, I just heard. Your father means well. I silenced the phone and shoved it in my pocket. The time for making excuses was over. If they wanted to treat me like I didn't matter, fine. I'd show them exactly what I was capable of when I stopped playing the dutiful daughter. At the bus stop, I pulled out my phone again and opened my banking app. The savings I'd been building toward a down payment on a house stared back at me. More than enough to hire a good lawyer. Time to make some changes, I muttered, already drafting an email to schedule a consultation. My father had taught me well about the importance of family and money, just not the lessons he'd intended. Let them think they'd won. Let them think I'd roll over and take it like always. They had no idea what was coming. The local library's genealogy section was eerily quiet as I spread out old property records across the wooden table. 3 days had passed since my car disappeared, and I'd called in sick to work, determined to find something, anything I could use. "You really think there might be hidden assets?" Ainsley whispered, scrolling through her laptop. She'd taken the afternoon off to help me dig through records. "Dad's always been weird about the family history," I said, squinting at a faded deed. "Every time Mom brought up selling the lake house, he'd get all mysterious and say there were complications." Speaking of complications, Ainsley turned her screen toward me. "Your brother just posted on Instagram. He's at some casino with Isabella." I clenched my jaw. Of course he is. Probably spending whatever's left from selling my car. Want me to key his motorcycle? Because I totally will. "No," I said, though the offer was tempting. "I need something bigger. Something that'll make them both realize—" I stopped, staring at a document dated 1952. "Wait, look at this." Ainsley leaned over. "The Riverside Estate? Never heard of it." "That's because it's listed under my great-grandmother's maiden name." I pulled out my phone, Googling the address. It's this massive Victorian house just outside town. I remember Dad pointing it out once when I was little, saying it was part of our heritage. And according to this, it passed down through the female line, which means, holy shit. Ainsley's eyes widened. "You think you might have a claim to it?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Mom's face appeared on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Andrea, are you coming to dinner tonight? Your father wants to talk." "Can't, Mom. Working late." The lie came easily now. "He feels terrible about the car. He's trying to figure out how to make it up to you." "By letting Spencer gamble away more money?" The words came out sharper than intended. "Your brother's going through a rough time. Aren't we all?" I cut her off, noticing other library patrons glancing our way. "Look, I have to go. I'll call you later." Ainsley waited until I hung up. "You know what you need? A lawyer, a good one, who specializes in property law." "I can't afford—" "Actually," she interrupted, turning her laptop again. "You can. I found someone perfect. Archer Ortiz. Young, hungry for cases, and has a thing for digging up old property claims. His consultation fee is reasonable, too." I studied the professional headshot on the law firm's website. Archer looked competent, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "What's the worst that could happen?" Ainsley pressed. "You waste a consultation fee and find out there's nothing there? At least you'll know?" 2 hours later, I sat in Archer's office, watching him review the documents I'd found. "Interesting," he murmured, adjusting his glasses. "Very interesting. The property transfer clause is unusual for that time period. Your great-grandmother was quite forward-thinking." "So there might be something here?" He looked up, and I caught a glint of excitement in his eyes. "More than something. Based on these records, you have a legitimate claim to the estate. The property's been in legal limbo since your grandmother's death, but the inheritance clause is clear. It passes to the eldest female descendant." "That's me," I whispered. "That's you," he confirmed, "though there are complications. Back taxes, maintenance costs, potential competing claims." "From my brother?" "Possibly, though his claim would be weaker. The real challenge will be proving continuous family connection and handling the tax situation." He leaned forward. "But if you're willing to fight for this, I believe we can win." My heart raced. "How long would it take?" "A few months, maybe less if we move quickly and quietly." He paused. "Does your family know you're looking into this?" I thought of Spencer at the casino, of Dad in his office dismissing my feelings. "No, and I'd like to keep it that way." "Smart," Archer nodded. "The element of surprise can be valuable in cases like this. I'll need a retainer to start working." "Done," I said, pulling out my checkbook. "Whatever it takes." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from Spencer. "Hey sis, can you spot me some cash? Just temporary?" I smiled, thinking of the estate documents in my bag. Sorry, I typed back. All my money's tied up in investments right now. For once, I wasn't even lying. This was definitely an investment. In justice, in karma, and in finally teaching my family that their actions had consequences. Game on, I whispered, stepping into the elevator. The reflection of my smile in the mirrored walls looked almost predatory. $37,000 in back taxes? I stared at the documents spread across Archer's desk. That's more than I have in savings. Plus, another $15,000 in administrative fees. Archer tapped his pen against the paperwork. The good news is, I've confirmed your claim is valid. The bad news is that I can't afford to claim it, I finished, slumping in my chair. Not necessarily. He pulled out another file. I did some digging into the property's current value. The estate sits on 5 acres of prime real estate. Conservative estimate? It's worth at least $2 million. My mouth went dry. $2 million? Minimum. The house needs work, but the location alone. He shrugged. Let's just say it would be worth finding a way to pay those taxes. A knock at the door interrupted us. Archer's assistant poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. Someone else is requesting the estate records. My heart stopped. Who? She handed Archer a paper. His expression darkened. Your brother's girlfriend, Isabella. She was at the county records office this morning. That's impossible, I said, but my mind was already racing. Unless, Dad must have mentioned something to Spencer. This complicates things, Archer said. If they file a competing claim, they won't. I stood up, pacing. They can't afford the taxes either. Spencer's so deep in debt he can barely afford rent. Unless your father helps them. The words hung in the air like smoke. Of course Dad would help them. He always did. My phone buzzed. Speaking of the devil. A text from Spencer. Hey sis, weird question. You know anything about great-grandma's old house? I showed Archer the message. What do I do? Don't respond, he advised. The less they know about your involvement, the better. But we need to move fast. He pulled out a calculator. If we can secure a loan for the taxes, I've got something better. I pulled up my banking app. My house down payment. It's not enough for all of it, but I might know an investor willing to front the rest, Archer said. For a percentage of the eventual sale, of course. Sale? That's what you're planning, right? Claim the estate? Sell it? Make a profit? I nodded slowly, an idea forming. Yeah, something like that. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Andrea, honey, your father wants to have a family meeting tonight. It's important. Can't make it, I texted back. Working late. It's about your great-grandmother's estate, she replied. Your father says you need to be there. I looked at Archer. They're moving faster than we thought. He checked his watch. My investor contact is free now. Want to make a call? 20 minutes later, we were on speakerphone with Robert, Archer's investor friend. His voice crackled through the line. $50,000 for a property worth $2 million? Count me in. But I want 30% of the sale price. 20, I countered, surprising myself with my firmness. 25, and I'll have the money transferred within the hour. I met Archer's eyes. He nodded slightly. Deal, I said. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork and signatures. By 4 o'clock, Archer was filing our claim with the county. What happens now? I asked, watching him stack the documents. Now? He smiled. Now we wait for the county to process our claim. Should take about a week. In the meantime, my phone interrupted again. Dad this time. Andrea, this is important. Be at the house by 7 tonight or you'll regret it. I showed Archer the message. Sounds like they're planning something. Let them plan, he said. Our paperwork is already filed. We're ahead of them. Unless... I hesitated. Unless Spencer has some claim I don't know about. Archer pulled out the original deed. The inheritance clause is specific, female line only. But, he frowned, studying a paragraph. There's something here about mutual beneficiaries if certain conditions are met. What conditions? It's unclear. The language is archaic, and part of the document is damaged. He looked up. Maybe you should go to that family meeting. See what they know? I checked the time. 2 hours until 7. If I go, I might tip our hand. Or you might get valuable information. He started packing up his briefcase. Just remember, don't sign anything, don't agree to anything, and most importantly, don't let them know what we've done today. I nodded, gathering my things. As I reached the door, Archer called out, Andrea, whatever happens tonight, remember, you're already ahead of them. You've got the legal high ground. I smiled, but my stomach was in knots. Let's hope that's enough. I didn't go to the family meeting. Instead, I sat in my apartment with Ainsley, watching my phone explode with messages while we worked on Plan B. They're losing their minds, Ainsley said, scrolling through my texts. Your dad sent like 15 messages. Oh, and Spencer's threatening to come over. Let him, I said, focusing on my laptop screen. I've got a potential buyer lined up for tomorrow. My phone started ringing. Dad again. I declined the call. You're really going to ghost them? Ainsley asked. Watch this. I opened my email and clicked send on a message I'd been drafting. Just informed Dad's secretary that I'm taking 2 weeks of personal leave from work, effective immediately. Bold move. What if he shows up at your apartment? That's why I'm not staying here. I closed my laptop. Already booked an Airbnb across town, near the estate, actually. My phone buzzed with another text. Isabella this time. Your brother's really upset. Why are you being so selfish? Selfish! I laughed, showing Ainsley the message. That's rich coming from Spencer's enabler-in-chief. A sharp knock at the door made us both jump. Andrea! Spencer's voice boomed through the wood. Open up! We need to talk! Ainsley raised an eyebrow. Want me to tell him to fuck off? No need. I grabbed my pre-packed overnight bag. The back exit leads to the parking garage. He can stand there all night for all I care. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from Mom. This time, I answered. Where are you? She demanded. Your father's furious. He says you're trying to steal your great-grandmother's property. Steal? I kept my voice calm. Funny, I didn't hear him complaining when he stole my car. That was different. You're right, Mom, it was different. That was illegal. What I'm doing is completely within my rights. But Spencer needs... I have to go. I cut her off. My lawyer's calling. It wasn't entirely a lie. Archer had just texted, Buyer confirmed for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring ID and all documentation. The next morning, I sat across from Maria, a real estate developer with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. Archer sat beside me, reviewing the preliminary agreement. $2.5 million, Maria said, sliding the offer across the table. As is, no inspections required. I'll handle all renovation costs. I tried not to let my shock show. That was $500,000 more than we'd expected. The location is perfect for my new project, she continued, but I need to move fast. Today's offer expires at noon. Archer cleared his throat. My client needs assurance about the payment structure. Full amount in escrow by end of day, Maria replied. Released as soon as the title clears. Speaking of which, she glanced at her watch. I heard rumors about another potential claim. No valid claims exist, Archer assured her. We've verified the inheritance clause thoroughly. My phone vibrated. Dad again. You're making a huge mistake. That property belongs to the whole family. I turned the phone face down. I'm ready to sign. Maria smiled. Excellent. Though, she paused, reviewing a document. There is one small detail. The property's historical status requires any sale to be approved by all living descendants. A formality, really. What? I looked at Archer. You didn't mention this. It's a recent regulation, he said, frowning. But given your clear inheritance rights... I'll need signatures from all family members, Maria interrupted. By Friday, or I'll have to pursue other options. My heart sank. That's impossible. They'll never agree. Then make them agree, Maria said simply. 2.5 million is a lot of motivation. I'm sure you can figure something out. She stood, gathering her papers. You have until Friday. Don't waste my time. After she left, I turned to Archer. Now what? He was already pulling out his phone. Now we get creative. Your brother's in debt, right? How much? Last I heard, about 50,000. Why? Because, he said, a slight smile forming. I think it's time to buy some cooperation. How would you feel about helping your brother out of his gambling debts? You want me to bribe him? I want you to negotiate. There's more than enough money here to solve everyone's problems. He paused. If you're willing to play hardball. I thought about my car, about years of being the responsible one, about Dad's dismissive attitude. Hardball? I picked up my phone, starting to draft a message to Spencer. I can do hardball. Good, Archer said, because you've got 3 days to make this work. I hit send on the text. Want to clear your gambling debts? Meet me tomorrow, come alone. The response was immediate. Where? I smiled, typing the address of my Airbnb. Time to negotiate, big brother. Spencer showed up looking worse than I'd expected. Dark circles under his eyes, rumpled clothes, that nervous energy I recognized from his previous rock-bottom moments. You look terrible, I said, letting him into the Airbnb. Yeah, well, loan sharks tend to have that effect. He paced the living room, running his hands through his hair. So what's this about? You said something about my debts? Sit down. I pointed to the couch. We need to talk business. Business? He laughed. Since when are you? 50,000, I interrupted. That's what you owe, right? To various unsavory characters? He stopped pacing. How did you? Doesn't matter. What matters is I can make it go away. I pulled out the sale agreement. All you have to do is sign this. Spencer grabbed the paper, eyes widening as he read. 2.5 million? Holy shit, Andrea. I need your signature, and Dad's, by Friday. Or what? Or the deal falls through, and you can explain to your loan sharks why you're missing another payment. He sank onto the couch. Dad's gonna lose it. He's been talking about turning that place into some family legacy project. Dad lost his right to make decisions about my property when he sold my car. I sat across from him. Besides, his legacy project is just another way to keep control. You know that. Maybe, but... His phone buzzed. He checked it, face paling. Shit. Loan sharks? He nodded. Show me. He handed over the phone. The message was brief. Payment by Friday, or we visit Isabella next. They know where she lives? I asked. They know everything. He put his head in his hands. God, I really fucked up this time. Sign the papers, I said. I'll have the money transferred to clear your debts within hours. Just like that? Just like that, I paused. But Spencer? This is it. The last bailout. After this, you're on your own. He stared at the papers for a long moment. Then, without a word, he grabbed a pen and signed. Now help me convince Dad, I said. He's not going to... My phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Andrea? Her voice was shaking. You need to come home, now. What's wrong? Your father. He had a panic attack. He's okay, she added quickly. But the doctor says it was stress-related. He keeps talking about the estate, about losing everything. I met Spencer's eyes. He looked as guilty as I felt. We'll be right there, I said. At the hospital, Mom was waiting in the hallway. She hugged Spencer first, then, to my surprise, pulled me into an even tighter embrace. He's awake, she said. But Andrea, I need to tell you something first. She led me to a quiet corner. The estate. There's more to it than you know. Your father, he's been using it as collateral, for loans, for the business. My stomach dropped. What? He never thought anyone would claim it. He's been borrowing against it for years. If it sells... She wrung her hands. The business could go under. Why didn't he tell me? Pride, shame, pick one. She touched my arm. I'm not saying what he did was right. With the car, with any of it. But, but you want me to fix it, I finished. I want you to talk to him. Really talk. No more games, no more secrets. From either of you. Dad looked small in the hospital bed. His face lit up when he saw Spencer, then fell when he saw me. Come to finish me off? He asked weakly. No, I said, pulling up a chair. I came to negotiate. Andrea, let me finish. I know about the loans. Mom told me. I took a deep breath. So here's the deal. I'm selling the estate. But I'm willing to structure it in a way that lets you keep the business afloat. His eyes widened. You'd do that? On 3 conditions. First, you sign the sale papers. Second, you help Spencer get into real gambling addiction treatment. And third, you acknowledge publicly to the whole family that what you did with my car was wrong, and you make it right. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Dad reached for my hand. When did you get so strong? He asked softly. I've always been strong, I replied. You just never noticed. He nodded slowly. Bring me the papers. As I left to get them from my car, I heard him say to Spencer, Your sister's right. It's time we both got our acts together. I paused in the hallway, letting out a shaky breath. This wasn't how I'd planned it, but maybe Mom was right. Maybe it was time for all the games to end. The money's been transferred, Archer said, sliding the confirmation across his desk. Your brother's debts are cleared, your father's business loans are restructured, and, he smiled, there's still plenty left for you. I stared at the number on the paper. Even after everything, it was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. First things first, I said, pulling up a website on my phone. I'm buying back my car. The same one? Better. I showed him the listing. The dealer's holding it for me, picking it up this afternoon. My phone buzzed. A text from Spencer. First therapy session done. Feels weird, but thanks. Your brother doing okay? Archer asked. Better than expected. The treatment center's good. Isabella's being supportive. I paused. Dad's even covering half the cost. Ah, speaking of your father. Archer pulled out another document. The business restructuring is complete. He can keep the company, though he'll be paying off those loans for a while. Good. I stood up. Time for the final piece. An hour later, I pulled into the dealership in my Uber. The salesman was waiting with keys in hand. She's all yours, he said, gesturing to the sleek black BMW. Want to take her for a spin? The leather seat felt like victory as I adjusted the mirrors. My phone buzzed again. Dad this time. Coming to dinner tonight? He asked. Your mother's making your favorite. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. And I'm bringing dessert. I had one more stop to make first. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, its rows of orange doors baking in the afternoon sun. Unit 247 rolled up with a satisfying clang. Inside sat my old Honda, dusty but undamaged. Dad had stored it here after the sale, unable to actually get rid of it. Another thing he'd confessed in the hospital. I ran my hand along its familiar hood. Thanks for everything, old friend. Back home, I changed for dinner, taking extra care with my appearance. This wasn't just any family meal. This was the beginning of something new. Mom opened the door before I could knock. Andrea, is that a new car in the driveway? Part of my fresh start, I said, hugging her. Where's everyone? Living room. Spencer and Isabella are already here. I found them all exactly where I expected. Dad in his armchair, Spencer and Isabella on the couch, looking surprisingly clear-eyed and present. Nice wheels, sis, Spencer said. Way better than that old Honda. About that. Dad cleared his throat. Andrea, I have something for you. He pulled out an envelope. Inside was the title to my old Honda, now properly transferred to my name. I know it doesn't make up for everything, he said, but it's a start. Actually, I said, I have something for all of you too. I pulled out my own envelopes, one for each of them. Inside each was a check, carefully calculated to be fair, but not enabling. "What's this?" Isabella asked, eyes widening at the amount. "Your share of the estate sale," I explained. "After debts and everything else, I wanted to make sure everyone got something, but—" I looked at Spencer. "The money's in a trust. Monthly payments only, contingent on continuing therapy." "And mine?" Dad asked, looking at his check. "Enough to ease the loan payments, not enough to risk the lessons learned." I turned to Mom. "Yours is unconditional. You've earned it." "Andrea." Mom's eyes were wet. "This is too much." "No," I said firmly. "It's exactly right." And speaking of right, I pulled out my car keys, both sets. "Dad, the Honda's going to a women's shelter. They help people start over. Seemed fitting." He nodded slowly. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I learned from the best," I said. "You taught me about money and power, just not the way you intended." "And now?" Spencer asked. "What happens now?" "Now we eat," Mom announced. Perfect timing as always. "And maybe we start over?" As we moved to the dining room, I caught Dad wiping his eyes. "You know," he said quietly, "I've never been more proud of you than I am right now. Even though I outmaneuvered you? Especially because of that." He squeezed my shoulder. "You're stronger than both of us men in this family. Always have been." "Speaking of strength," I said, "pass the potatoes. I'm starving." The laughter around the table felt real for the first time in years. Not perfect, not completely healed, but real. Sometimes I realized revenge isn't about destroying people. Sometimes it's about forcing them to be better. And sometimes, just sometimes, it comes with a really nice car. 3 months after the estate sale, I stood in front of the old Victorian house one last time. The demolition was scheduled for tomorrow. Maria's new development project was moving forward right on schedule. "Feels weird, doesn't it?" Spencer said, walking up beside me. He looked healthier now, clear-eyed, steady on his feet. 3 months of therapy had done wonders. "Yeah," I admitted, "but good weird. Remember when Dad used to drive us past here? Tell us all those stories about great-grandma?" "The fearless matriarch," I quoted, mimicking Dad's dramatic tone. "Who built an empire from nothing?" Turns out he was right about that part. Spencer kicked at a loose stone. Just not the way he thought. My phone buzzed. A text from Isabella. "Meeting still on for lunch. Big news to share?" "Your girlfriend's getting impatient," I said, showing him the message. He grinned, patting his jacket pocket. "Yeah, well, proposing tends to make people nervous." "What?" I grabbed his arm. "You're going to—" "Assuming you approve?" He pulled out a small velvet box. "After everything, felt right to ask you first." I opened the box. The ring was modest but beautiful, exactly Isabella's style. "You used the trust money for this?" "Nope." His chest puffed up slightly. "Saved it from my new job. Turns out accounting is actually interesting when you're not gambling away the profits." "Look at you, all grown up." I punched his arm lightly. "Dad knows?" "Telling him tonight. Mom's already planning the wedding in her head." Another car pulled up, Dad's Mercedes. He got out slowly, still moving carefully since the hospital. "Thought I'd find you both here," he said, joining us at the fence. "One last look?" "Something like that," I said. He stared at the house, hands in his pockets. "You know, your great-grandmother would have approved of all of this." "The sale? The way you handled it. Strong, smart, but fair." He turned to me. "I found her old journals in the office. She was a lot like you." "Dad." "No, let me finish. I spent years trying to preserve some imagined legacy when the real legacy was right in front of me." He looked at Spencer. "Both of you, in your own ways." "Speaking of legacy," Spencer said, fidgeting with the ring box in his pocket. Dad's eyes caught the movement. "Is that what I think it is? Maybe?" Spencer pulled out the box. I was going to tell you tonight, but Dad's face lit up. Son, that's... Wait. He narrowed his eyes. You can afford this? He saved up, I said proudly. Legitimately. Well then. Dad cleared his throat, clearly emotional. I suppose we have something to celebrate. Two things, actually, I said. I got the final paperwork today. The women's shelter officially owns the Honda. They're already using it to help women get to job interviews. Three things, Spencer corrected. Tell him about your promotion, sis. Dad's eyebrows rose. Promotion? Senior financial analyst, I said. Different firm, better pay, starts next month. Not staying with the family business? I think we all need some healthy boundaries, I said carefully. Besides, you've got Spencer learning the ropes now. Part-time, Spencer added quickly. While I finish my accounting certification. Dad looked between us, shaking his head in wonder. When did my kids get so... competent? I suggested. Impressive, he corrected. I'm sorry it took all this for me to see it. A construction worker approached the fence. Sorry, folks, need to clear the area. Demolition prep starting soon. We took one last look at the house. In the fading light, it almost seemed to wink at us, like it knew its job was done. Dinner at our place? Dad offered. Your mother's dying to use that new kitchen she insisted on renovating with her share. Can't, Spencer said. Got a lunch thing with Isabella. He winked at me. I'll come, I said, but I'm driving myself. Dad laughed. In that fancy new BMW? Show off. Learned from the best, I teased. Race you there? Not a chance, but I'll follow your lead. He squeezed my shoulder. I'm getting pretty good at that. As we walked to our cars, I heard the construction crew starting their work. The old house would be gone tomorrow, but its final gift, the way it had forced us all to confront our truths and grow, would last forever. Hey, Dad, I called out. Thanks for selling my car. He stopped, startled, then saw my smile. Thanks for making me pay for it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just growing strong enough to change the game entirely. The autumn breeze carried the sound of laughter from Mom's new kitchen as I pulled into the driveway. Spencer and Isabella's engagement party was in full swing, though I'd slipped out earlier for a private errand. There you are, Ainsley called from the porch. Did you get it? I patted my bag. Mission accomplished. Inside, the house hummed with conversation and clinking glasses. Isabella was showing off her ring to relatives while Spencer chatted with his therapy group friends, a sight that still amazed me. Andrea! Dad waved me over to his new favorite spot, a simple armchair by the window, no longer the imposing throne-like seat he used to occupy. Where'd you disappear to? Had to pick something up. I sat on the arm of his chair. Actually, I have an announcement to make. He raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried? For once. No. Mom appeared with fresh appetizers. Everyone, Andrea has something to say. As the room quieted, I pulled out a folder from my bag. So, remember that women's shelter that got my old Honda? Nods around the room. Well, they needed more than just one car. They needed a whole program. Driving lessons, car maintenance workshops, a proper fleet of vehicles. I opened the folder. So, I started one. What? Spencer moved closer, Isabella at his side. The Morgan Women's Mobility Foundation, I said, showing them the incorporation papers. Using part of my estate money as seed funding. But, I turned to Dad, I need a business partner, someone with experience running a successful company. Dad's eyes widened. Me? As a consultant only, I clarified. It's my show to run. But I could use your expertise, the right way this time. He took the papers with trembling hands. This is incredible. But why tell everyone now? Because, I said, pulling out more documents, I want the whole family involved. Mom's great at organization. Spencer's got his accounting skills. Isabella's amazing with people. I handed out role descriptions I'd drafted. If you want to be part of it, that is. Part of it? Mom wiped her eyes. Honey, you're building a legacy, a real one. Better than some old house, Spencer added. Ha, speaking of the house, I pulled out my phone, showing them Maria's latest email. The developer found something during demolition, a hidden room with more of great-grandma's journals. What did they say? Isabella asked. Haven't read them yet. Thought maybe we could do it together? I looked at Dad. Learn about our real family history? He nodded, emotion clear on his face. I'd like that. First entry? I pulled out one journal, already bookmarked. It's about her car. Apparently, Great-Grandpa tried to sell it to cover his brother's debts. No way, Spencer laughed. Way. Want to know what she did? Tell us. Isabella leaned forward. She took both their cars, sold them herself, and used the money to start her first business venture. I grinned at Dad. Sound familiar? He shook his head, chuckling. So that's where you get it from. The best part? I continued. She made them take public transit for a year while she built her company. Called it character building. The room erupted in laughter. Even Dad joined in. To Andrea, Spencer raised his glass, for teaching us all about character. To family, Mom added, the kind we choose to be. To Great-Grandma, I said, who knew sometimes the best revenge is success. Later, as guests began to leave, Dad pulled me aside. You know, I kept one of your car's old parking tickets. Framed it in my office. Why? To remind me of the day my daughter outmaneuvered me. Best business lesson I ever learned. He hugged me. I'm so proud of who you've become. Even though I'm not following your path? Because you made your own. That's what real legacy looks like. Mom called us for cleanup duty, and as we all pitched in, Spencer and Isabella washing dishes, Mom directing traffic, Dad and me handling leftovers, I realized something profound. This was what I'd really won. Not money or property or even revenge. I'd won my family back, not as they were, but as they could be. Better, stronger, more honest. Hey, sis, Spencer called from the sink. Remember when you said game on? Yeah? He smiled. Game over. You won. No, I corrected, looking around at my transformed family. We all did. Sometimes the biggest victories come not from defeating your opponents, but from changing the game so completely that everyone has a chance to win. And sometimes, just sometimes, the car that drives you forward isn't the one in your driveway. It's the one that carries your whole family towards something better.